is Bear Siragusa, and you are listening to the Hunting Hound podcast presented by W Hunting Supply. All right. How you doing, Charlie? There you are. You actually have some internet today. I thought we were going to get you on the phone.
Yeah. There's a bunch of wildfires around our area right now, and they were talking about shutting down power so transformers don't start fires.
Right.
So everything's been so dry and so hot and windy today. So no, we're good so far.
Right. Okay. Gotcha. Charlie, you and Nick have spoken before, at least. You know who each other are.
Yep.
What's going on, man? Good to see you.
Not much.
Excellent. Well, thanks for coming on, both of you. It's always a pleasure, Nick and Charlie. It's fun to talk to somebody new, or you're not new in the sport. You've been doing it for a while, but always fun to get a new guest on the podcast. So, tell us a little bit about yourself, Charlie. Like, what are you running? Where are you running?
Well, I am from the Pacific Northwest, Oregon specifically. Just running raccoons with my 3 big hounds, and then just got a beagle here recently.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been running some rabbits with her.
Cool.
Yeah.
I'm trying to pressure Nick into getting a beagle.
He knows all about those.
I'm trying to wear him down. A little bit of peer pressure, subliminal messaging, things like that.
That's it. I'm going to have to what people don't know is right here at my house, literally 40 yards away, is my dad's beagle lot. So I get a lot of beagle activity, them barking and stuff out here. So it's going to be easy this fall. Just sneak over and grab 1 or 2, throw it in the box, and go out for some test runs.
Exactly. Yeah.
They're fun little things. They're fun.
They are fun. How old is your beagle pup?
She just turned a year.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, just turned 1.
Cool.
What size beagle do you have?
She's
supposed to be
13-inch.
Okay.
Yeah, she's a little one.
Yep, I think that's about where my male's going to end up. He's real little compared to some of the other ones. Even from that litter, he's got a brother that's pretty big. But I think that Mike's going to end up being about 13 inches.
No, Mike, you've had him kind of getting after a couple of things on the walks, haven't you? I've seen on your Facebook.
Yeah, we bumped a deer because here in Norway you're not allowed to run deer with a dog that's over 16 inches at the shoulder. Mm-hmm. The idea being that the dog's not going to be able to move fast enough to stress the deer to the point of exhaustion or to the point where it's not going to be able to recover.
Makes sense.
And that has to do with both the terrain, but also the severity of the winters here.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my plan with Mike, is to use him on deer, because it's either that or I can use him on hare or something like that. But the hare is not enough of a solid deal for me to be able to use. For me to be able to use that, I don't think.
Okay.
So, I think I'll use Mike on the deer, and yeah, we've been out walking a bunch, and we bumped a roe deer. I don't know, about 4 weeks ago, a month ago, something like that. Yeah, and yeah, he was just kind of doing puppy things, chasing butterflies, rolling around in mud puddles, things like that. The deer jumped out in the road and the wind was right, so the deer didn't smell us, but we could smell it. And he, went from, idiot pup to hunting dog in about a half second. Ran that.
Flipped the switch.
Yeah, it was cool to see, that he ran that one for about, wasn't that long, 10 minutes maybe.
Mm-hmm.
But, went from having never been more than, 15, 20 yards from me to, suddenly being, more than half a mile out there after the steer. It was pretty cool to see.
Yeah.
And then he found his own. It wasn't just sort of a sort of incidental bump. He went out and found his own here last weekend. He found tracked a deer to its bed, and we bumped that one as well, which was fun to see. So yeah, he's coming along. He's still green, but having fun with him. He's seems like a good pup. The funny thing complicated the whole deal. I've had to change a little bit where I'm dropping him.
Mm-hmm.
Because I had a funny experience hunting fox here about, I guess that was 2 weeks ago, where I was running my American foxhound. I've got a little bit like you're talking about, Charlie. You've got both the beagles, or the beagle, and then the tall hounds.
Mm-hmm.
I was running my American foxhound Virpi, and people have heard me talk about her on the podcast. She's really inconsistent. She can have a day where she is just blowing the other dogs out of the water, and then she'll have a day where, she can barely get out of her own way. I mean, sometimes literally, like, look up at a tree and run into another tree type of deal.
Yeah.
But I dropped her. She went out about 100 yards and started barking, and it was not like I'm on the trail of something barking. This was not like it was a contact bark. It was like treed.
Yeah.
But super aggressive, like with an angry note that I had never heard from her before. So I'm thinking, the first thing that crossed my mind is, maybe she caught a badger on the ground.
Mm-hmm.
So I start walking in there, just sort of whistling Dixie. I've got this stupid little shotgun with me with bird shot, or number 3 shot in it. And I get to real close and still can't see him because it's pretty tight. It's pretty close, tight forest. And stop to listen. It occurs to me that maybe this is something more than what I think it is. And I stop to listen. And all I can hear is her losing her mind. Like, I've heard her at the most, I've heard her at about 65 barks per minute on the Garmin.
Mm-hmm.
And she was at 120.
Wow.
She was excited.
Oh, she was excited and just angry. Like, ah, 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 ah. So I stopped to listen, and I can hear her, but over her, I can hear, and then this like clapping noise, like,
Uh-oh.
and it suddenly occurs to me, it's like, I think that's the noise bears make when they get angry. And the wind switched, the wind sort of swirled, and, suddenly she went busting out of there with a big old brown bear.
Wow.
And it took me like an hour and a half to get her off of that bear. She was on it like cat hair on Velcro. She was not about to drop that bear.
Time out here, because Norway and America, a little different species of stuff. When you say brown bear, I hear people, toward the west say brown bear. You get up there, Alaska, they mean grizzly. There's black, there are brown.
Yep.
Good talking here.
Yeah, no, this was not a cinnamon phase black bear. We don't have black bear over here. This was a Eurasian brown bear.
Okay.
So like
bigger than black bears, I assume.
Much bigger than black bears.
Okay.
Not as big as the grizzlies most of the time. There are some of them that get, absurdly big. But
okay.
This is going to be like, because the grizzly is going to be like the inland brown bear, right?
Mm-hmm.
In Alaska. Like Charlie, you live out on that coast. Like, you can answer this better than I can. My understanding is the grizzlies are like the inland brown bears, and then you've got these coastal brown bears that are a little bit rounder, not quite as interested in eating people.
Yep. Yeah, pretty much. The inland ones, they don't have a problem eating people.
Okay. Is it the coastal ones that can be kind of a hard to handle, or is it the
I think that, as far as I know, they all are. We don't have any. Well, they say we don't have any around here. They're all up further north quite a bit, or Montana area.
Yeah.
A lot of black bears, though. A lot of black bears.
I'll bet. Yeah. No, I'll bet. So yeah, so this was the Eurasian brown bear, and it was a decent sized bear. You know, I don't have a lot to compare it to because they're not that common here. But you know, at least dwarfed her, and they ran over the road twice before I was able to pull her off. And the only reason I pulled her off is because it's super not okay for a hound to be running the brown bear over here. They're
Okay.
for the most part protected. And when they are allowed to be hunted, they can only be hunted by a dog that's going to herd them and bark, not a dog that's going to actually pursue them.
Okay.
Which is
Interesting.
It's an interesting distinction. It's a nice way to say. It's a nice way to put it. It's a distinction that drives me insane because, you know, when they have predation problems, which they have all the time here, because there's not a lot of bears, but they let all the sheep out during the summertime. Right. So the sheep are out there totally unsupervised and are obviously easy marks for the bear. When the state allows a bear to be taken, it's usually because of it's preying on domestic livestock. And then they use these Norwegian elk hounds or these Swedish elk hounds to hunt them, which, I mean, there are some good dogs amongst those, but as a type, they're not reliably good bear dogs. There are some members of those breeds that are fantastically good bear dogs. But your average elk hound is not going to be a particularly good bear dog. And so they use a lot of time trying to catch these bears with dogs that really aren't well suited for it. And then when that doesn't work, they go up in helicopters and try and find them that way, which costs the taxpayer an enormous amount of money.
Yeah.
You know, it's a lot of money to get a helicopter up there and get sharpshooters to go and find a bear in the middle of nowhere. And, you know, if they just allowed the use of hounds, it'd be done, you know, problem solved in about 10 minutes.
Yeah.
But
yeah, it's a lot the same way here.
Is it?
You know, they outlawed running bears and lions in like the mid 90s here with dogs. And it always kind of makes me laugh. Anytime somebody gets attacked by one or there's a problem one, they call the guy with the hounds to come tree it. But yet our Fish and Wildlife Department says that's not a effective way of managing the animals or hunting the animals. Just ridiculous.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is ridiculous. And, you know, I think that that was the reason, to sort of make a long story shorter. That was the reason I pulled Vitby off because, you know, I didn't want anybody complaining that I was intentionally running a bear with a hound, which was, you know, absolutely not the case. We were out hunting for fox. And honestly, I didn't know she had it in her. You know, this is a dog that, you know, is afraid of cheese. If you offer her a piece of cheese, that dog will run away from you. But apparently, you know,
brown bear,
a 600-pound brown bear is just like no problem for her.
Yeah.
So no, it was that was pretty fun. That was pretty interesting. So the rangers and the wildlife researchers got in there and got some DNA and things like that, and are working on establishing, based on other collections of DNA, other places where this bear came from and what its travel path has been.
So did you call them and tell them or something, and they went in there to find some fur or something? I mean, how'd that work?
Yeah,
you said they're collecting that.
Well, where she had bumped that bear was its bed in a blueberry patch.
Okay. Well,
So
I guess what I'm trying to get, I assume that they're so rare here or where you are that if you encounter one, you kind of let the authorities know so they can be informed and pattern them and do some data research. Is that what you're saying?
ideally
Okay.
you would do that.
Gotcha.
A lot of people won't,
Mhm.
but ideally they do.
Okay. That's cool.
So there was some, it had clearly been there for a while because there was some scat and things like that in there that they went in and collected to, just kind of create a database. They've got a great database over here of the bears that are in Norway and, where they are, who they're related to, things like that, which is actually pretty interesting.
Well, that's good that, that come out of that whole situation, though,
Yeah.
that nobody may have known that bear was in there and now was able to collect that data and add to it a little bit just because your dog decided to bump them up and run.
Yeah, exactly. My dog decided to run trash.
Trash.
Yeah. But speaking of trash, how's that for a transition?
Yeah.
You wanted to talk about that, Charlie. What do you have to say about trash?
So I don't know. I think it's funny how, I'm part of a fair amount of Facebook, hound hunting groups and stuff. Like my dogs are coon dogs. That's what they are. I don't want them running anything else. They'll put up an occasional possum or something, which, when they're puppies, I would, praise them up. Good job. You treat it. Anymore, I just pull them off and we just leave. Now, I'm not going to whip them. I'm not going to, do anything like that to them.
Sure.
Because I don't care if they put it up the tree, they put it up the tree. But I'm not going to praise them for it when they're at the age they are now.
Sure. How old are your dogs, by the way?
My 2 blue ticks, they're litter mates. They're 2.
Mm-hmm.
I have a July foxhound. She's 3.
Oh, cool.
And then I have a Walker blue tick cross that she just turned 6.
Okay. Yep.
And I posted on Facebook, oh, they treat a possum tonight. And then you get these guys on here that are, oh, you need to cull that dog. You need to get rid of that mud. It's running trash. And my thing is, well, what exactly is trash?
Mm-hmm.
What do you consider trash?
Right.
I'm kind of, and like, what do you guys think? What do you think? What do you consider trash?
Well, I mean, here, I guess a lot of what I would consider trash would be there's so many restrictions on what we can and can't run with specific dogs that, I've got to treat things that I probably wouldn't consider trash there in the States as trash here.
Right.
So it would not bother me at all in the States if I found out that, heck, I've got a hound that'll run bear and I was actually out after fox. That wouldn't bother me at all. But here, like, I need to do something about that. So, like, bear is trash here.
Right.
Yeah.
But, for me personally, like the things that the beagle I'm going to hunt deer with, but otherwise I wouldn't want, my tall hounds, even if it wasn't illegal here based on how tall they are, I don't think I would want my tall hounds running deer. I think I'd be treating that as trash.
Right.
Yeah. I think here or with me, anything I don't want them to. I mean, you can hunt bear here, but if my dog gets on a bear, he's running trash just because I don't bear hunt. So it's just depending on every hunter and every situation what he's wanting to run at that time.
Sure.
So, but I got one purpose hounds and some people have multi-purpose hounds. You know how that goes. So,
yep. Yeah. And I'm same way as Nick, it's whatever I don't want them running.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't have all day to take my dogs out and run a bobcat. I just don't have the time.
Right.
I don't have the patience for it. So for me, like that, a bobcat to me is trash.
Right.
Now you say that to some bobcat hunters over here, and boy, they get upset.
Right.
Because how dare you call that trash? Well, then they, same way they might turn around and say a raccoon's trash. Right. Well, for me, that's what I want my dogs chasing.
Right.
I think this word trash is, I don't know, people say, oh, well, this is trash and that's just the way it is. Well, for me, it's not. Bear and lion, we can't hunt those here legally. Right. I don't want them running bear and lion. Right. So those are trash.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think I know what you're trying to say. It's like, what is that old saying? One man's trash is another man's treasure. It's going to be sort of in the eye of the beholder, the eye of whoever's running those dogs.
Now, if I was competition coon hunting or something, and they started running possums, treeing possums, then yeah, that would be a problem.
Right.
But I don't. I just go out a couple nights a week and just go enjoy the dogs. So I've told people too. Well, I'm the one feeding them. Yep. So as long as you're happy with your dog, that's all that really matters. It doesn't matter what everybody else thinks.
Do you get a lot of like negative feedback for what you let your dogs run and what you don't let your dogs run? Online, I guess. I don't get a whole lot of negative feedback to my face, but I often get negative feedback. It seems to be the breeding ground for negative feedback on social media.
Yeah, and honestly, that's kind of why I don't really post a lot anymore of anything they've done, because I don't need it. I'm happy with what they're doing. They're other than skunks. If I could get them broke off skunks, that would be great. But I've had people say, "Oh, why don't you run bobcat?"
Right.
Like, well, I don't want to run bobcat. I don't have the time to make a bobcat dog, for one.
Yeah.
I would like to talk to the houndsman that does not consider skunks and porcupines trash.
Yeah. Yeah, my poor dog. She got one last Saturday. I think I was talking to you, Bear, about it.
Yeah.
We had just turned loose and we were walking. We were probably only 100 yards from the truck. Mm-hmm. And I see two little skunks walking in front of us. So I'm getting my rifle, getting ready to shoot them. And I look over because there's a little creek about 50 yards off to my left. And I look, I got the dog standing next to me. I'm looking out of my peripherals, and here comes another skunk up out of the creek.
Yeah.
And my one blue tick sees it, runs over there, grabs it, starts shaking it. It was a disaster.
Golly.
Oh, I'm sorry to laugh. It's just, it's just one of those things that anybody that's done anything with dogs, not here in Norway, because we don't have skunks here.
Mm-hmm.
And we've only got the hedgehog, so we don't have the full-blown porcupines either.
Okay.
And it is one of my favorite things about living over here is that I can let my dogs out. And there's 3 things I don't need to worry about. I don't need to worry about the right to retrieve. I don't need to worry about skunks, and I do not need to worry about porcupines.
I'll tell you a little skunk story. We don't have too many skunks here. And honestly, I can say, and of a skunk, on purpose. But I got kind of a side infestation of the smell on my dog one time. Went hunting, and this kid reached out to us and said, "Hey, I want to go hunting with you. You mind if I tag along one?" And I said, "Yeah, sure, come on." I mean, he's 18-year-old, 19-year-old kid, whatever. Well, I met him at the Cracker Barrel, and he pulled up in his mom's Camry car. He was borrowing at the time. Dog sitting in the backseat. Didn't think nothing of it, but that's important for the future. So we take off. We go down. Well, his dog gets in there and finds a skunk and just bays it. It sounds like he's treed. Well, my young pup cut off of his track, went to back him like he shouldn't have. When we got there, he'd killed the skunk and was slinging it everywhere.
Oh, no.
So we get in there to him, and it's obvious by the smell which dog really got a hold of the skunk and which one was around the skunk when it passed.
Right.
So I had some residual stink on my pup in the woods, and I was pretty well over we'd only hunt for like an hour and a half, but I was like, yeah, your dog stinks pretty bad. I got to stick him in my box. This is, I'm pretty much over this. We'll get together and hunt another time, buddy. So we get in the truck and we go on, pull back up to the Cracker Barrel parking lot, and it dawns on me. This dude's got to take this rank skunk smelling hound and put him in the back seat of his mom's Camry and drive. I never did hear how that story went down. I don't know if the kid got kicked out but.
Yeah, I hunted out of an SUV for some couple years. I was hound hunting, and thankfully never had that happen. It wasn't until I actually got a truck, and then we hunt a lot of farms. So we got a blueberry farm that we hunt, and then grass seed farms and hazelnut orchards. So the skunks there's a bunch of them usually.
Really?
I mean,
cool. Yeah, no, the skunks are rough, but it's like, apart from some residual social life casualties and the smell, luckily some vomiting. I guess there's not a lot of long-term benefits. I've had dogs that got quilled where I've pulled quills out on the other side of the dog 10 years later.
Yeah, that's crazy.
The quills are just brutal. I've got a pup making some noise here, so I'm just going to kick him outside real quick. I'll be right back.
Good work.
He saw the cat and got away from me there. Sorry about that.
Running trash.
Running trash.
Yeah, it's the trash thing is so. It's one of those things, I talked a little bit to Becky Dwyer about this. There's so many strong opinions on social media, and social media has kind of created this where all opinions are created equal. Suddenly, people that wouldn't have a voice suddenly have a voice, and in some ways that's positive. In other ways it's not, and I think that it gives the people who are just that sort of, some people just want to watch the world burn. It gives them a voice.
Mm-hmm.
And you can post something like, hey, we, like you said, we treat a possum tonight. And then you'll have somebody who's like, I don't know this person. This has no influence on my life or no bearing on my life whatsoever. But I'm just going to be a dick. You should kill that dog. It's just,
yeah.
It's one of those things where, if you put yourself out there on social media, which we do just by posting, you're going to get somebody who's going to just intentionally want to be a dick. It's just one of those things where I don't know how much time I'll post things and then I'll just kind of check out. Like there are a bunch of, if you go back and look at some of the stuff I've posted, there are usually comments that I've not replied to, because if somebody asks me a hard question like, hey, where did you get that information? Or, hey, why did you do that? I'll answer those questions. I love questions like that. Somebody who actually makes me consider and think about why I've done what I've done, because maybe I've got a real good reason, or maybe I did something knee jerk without thinking about it, and actually thinking about it leads me to a better solution that I can use the next time. But I won't answer the people who are like, all the people that got on me for when I bought Buzz, who, I mean, it turns out y'all were right, but you didn't know that, neither did I.
Yeah, they didn't know that. Yeah, I ran into that. Actually, this week, I woke up one morning and there was some dude, I won't give his name out there, just because I don't want to give him credit, but like 40 of my YouTube channels, he just went back and just went to trolling, found one thing hateful to say about like every one of them.
Okay. And
I said, dude, man, I really, you'll never understand how much I really appreciate you. He's like, what? I just went off. I said, dude, by you going back 40 videos, leaving comments, I said, all you did was bump the algorithm up and make Not Laugh YouTube pop up.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, so I appreciate that. You breathe some life into 4-year-old videos. It's pretty cool.
Right. You kind of have to wonder, too. It's like, what have you got going on in your life that gives you the 20 hours you needed to watch every single one of those videos?
Exactly. A hateful person to say something hateful and something you just posted, but if they want to fish back through 4 years of your stuff and then find something, yeah, they don't have much time on their hands.
No, they don't.
Or they have a lot of time on their hands.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Yeah, it's funny. I've had people say, "Oh, your dogs are no good because they treat a possum," and I kind of say, "Well, come on out, bring your dog, and we'll see how not good they are." I mean, I'm not saying my dogs are perfect by any stretch. I mean, they're still young. They're still they're still figuring it out. But, yeah, let's go hit the woods and let's see.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's really easy to judge people based off of what they post on social media. you know, and I don't do and I've talked about this before. I don't do grip and grins.
Yeah.
And 90%, or not 90%, the majority of any successes I have while I'm hunting, I'll post a picture of the dog. I'll post a picture of the skyline. I'll post a picture of the meal that I prepared. But I won't post a picture of that dead animal.
Yeah.
Nope.
And, you know, I've had people who have sent me, you know, messages being like, well, pictures where it didn't happen.
It's like, okay.
It's like, all right, you know, I've got those pictures too. If you all want pictures of what I have done, I've got those pictures. I take grip and grins, you know.
Just don't post them.
I just don't post them.
Yeah.
You know, so people take things at face value, and it was a real funny. One of my favorite groups, and I do mean this. It's one of my favorite groups on Facebook is the Old School Houndsman page on Facebook.
Yeah, that's nice. I like them.
It's a nice group. I think for the very most part, they're good. Seem like a good group of folks. But occasionally, someone will post something, and then they'll just get like 100 comments of people reacting. When you read the reactions, it's become so clear that they reacted to something on that first sentence and didn't actually read the entire post.
Yeah.
You know, so it gets to the point where after a while, I just stop caring. You know, it's like I get to the point where if somebody goes to the trouble to send me a message, a personal message to tell me that I suck, I'll answer that message because you went to the trouble to contact me. I can at least say, thank you very much. Coming from you, that's a you know, whatever I want to say.
Yeah.
But the people that just, you know, respond to something I post. I had one guy send me a message saying, I'm sure you know who I am. And I was like, I have no idea who you are, dude. And he was like, I'm the one who's been posting the angry emoji on your posts. And I was like, okay. Has somebody been posting the angry emoji on my posts? Like I had to go back and like look. It was like, oh yeah, geez, somebody is posting the angry emoji. So it's you know, it's people are so ridiculous that it's like if people hop on there and call your dogs crap because they're running trash to that person, you know.
You know, I got an observation I've made recently, and it's probably complete ignorance if it's observed by me, but it kind of ties in both what you're talking about. The whole social media is, I know of about 5 or 6, I'd say 18 to 25-year-olds locally around here that are out coon hunting 6 nights a week. I don't even know where they're getting the places to go because I can't find it. You know, I admire the fact that they can go. They got somewhere to go and they're still youthful enough to do it. And they're posting on their Facebook, and I follow some of them on Snapchat or whatever and TikTok.
Sure. And
somebody who follows all these kids sent me this other day, and they said, have you ever noticed that all you see these kids posting is like videos of their dogs at the base of the tree? And I was like, yeah, nah, I hadn't really paid no attention. What are you getting at here? And he said, well, they never shined the camera up in the tree and showed that they got the coon. He's like, I don't think they're actually treating any coons. I was like, what does it really matter? And he's like, well, what do you mean? It's like, well, think about this. I was like, you know, 10, 20 years ago, well, not 20, but 10, 15 years ago, that's all it was on social media. Have you treated the game that you're pursuing? Not trash. You know, did you harvest it? The grip and grin picture. Youth, locally anyway, to me, only thing they care about is that hound. I don't know if there's a coon in that tree. There could be 100 coons in that tree. I have no. Those kids in their videos were so excited and ecstatic that their hound was standing up on a tree barking You can see the excitement in the camera. Their hands are just shaking.
Sure.
Their dog is on this tree, and it is doing what it was bred to do. Whether it's fully successful or not, we don't know. And also, we don't care because they don't care.
Right.
They got out they wanted to, and everything they post is about that dog. And social media drug us so far away from that, I think, back. And it really pleases me to see that, at least locally. I can't speak for the country or whatever, but it's really refreshing to see these kids putting their heart and their excitement into what it's really about.
Heck, they were so excited they probably didn't even look. They were
Yeah.
probably just stoked that their dog was treeing.
Yep.
Yeah, which is awesome. It's awesome, and it's something that I see the lack of. I believe that a lot of what we see on social media is rose-colored and does not reflect the reality most of the time.
Yeah.
And sometimes it does reflect the reality when people have a success, and that's fantastic. Good for you. But at the same time, it's created this thing where anything other than black and white success is looked down upon now. Where, for example, with Virpi, that hound, I have never worked so hard on a single dog just to get the dog to open up on the trail.
Mm-hmm.
Getting her to start opening up after all that she went through as a pup was a monumental task and is one of my biggest successes in my hound, or certainly in my hound career, but also in my dog training career. Because I got this dog totally broken. Not as in like broken from trash, as in totally destroyed.
Right.
So, that was a huge moment for me because I knew how much work went into getting to that mediocre point with this dog. It's what I had to work with, and that's where I got.
Yeah.
I am still, to this day, that still makes me smile every time I think about it. Even though I've got dogs that were born able to do more than Virpi will ever be able to do. The fact that I was able to go from point A to that point with her felt like an enormous accomplishment when it finally happened.
Yeah.
So, but that's not something I ever shared on Facebook because I realized that, for most people, this is going to be sort of a minimum basic requirement.
Yeah.
It's like, it's like telling a 30-year-old that, oh, you can wipe yourself? Well, congratulations, man. That's it's, if you consider where she had come from, where she'd started, it felt like a win.
Yeah.
But I think that's what's a little bit of a bummer. It sounds like I'm hating on social media, and I'm on social media quite a bit with the podcast and things like that. But there are downsides.
Mm-hmm.
And I like the posts where a kid will be like, hey, I've got this 2-year-old dog and all he wants to tree is possums. I love it when people with a little bit of perspective, people like Becky Dwyer or you, Nick, or some, or with a little bit of perspective, get on there and be like, hey, man, congratulations on having a dog that's treeing.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
The whole social media thing, it's a double-edged sword.
It is.
But one side's sharper than the other. And I think the negative side of it is a little sharper because, like you say, I'm all about freedom of speech, but when you put it in the wrong hands, it can be hurtful. And if they're putting something out there hoping that someone they look up to sees it or comments on it, and then maybe other people or even that person throws out a hateful comment like that, you can set a kid or an impressionable person, someone new to the sport, so far behind and such a distaste for the people in the sport and the sport. You do just it can be irreversible damage, really. You know, and on the other side of that sword is social media is keeping houndsmen in the front line where we're not forgotten about, you know, whatever. But we've preached this a million times. You got to be careful with this social media stuff.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, you do. And, you know, the thing that and I don't know whether this is the right thing to do, but it's something that I've started doing more of, is actually reaching out to the people that are getting those negative comments. And, you know, if they deserve the negative comments, I'm not going to touch that one.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there was a when you start asking for health advice on Facebook and start getting the solutions, like, you know, force feed it tequila until it passes out as the sort of the solution. I'm not going to contact that person when they get jumped on for being an idiot. That person deserves
They deserve it.
Yeah, yep. Exactly. But, you know, at the same time, you know, I like to contact people and be like, hey, you know, don't take this too seriously. Like, you know, the people that are responding to you right now, they're the bottom of the barrel. Like they're the worst that we have to offer. I believe that. The people that are going to hop on a newbie and tell them how much they suck, I mean, and I'll speak directly to those people. If any of you listen to this podcast, you suck.
Yeah.
You know, you guys suck. You guys are destroying. You are doing more to destroy what we love than you're as bad as the antis.
Yep.
In my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah. I've been out hunting with people that are fairly new, and that, you know, I'm still fairly new too. I mean, I've only been in it, 6 years now.
Yep.
But people like, oh, you know, these people telling me this dog's no good and I need to get rid of it. This and that. And same thing, like I said earlier, are you happy with your dog? Do you like your dog? Well, yeah. Okay. That's all that matters. You're feeding it. You're happy with it. It doesn't matter what they think.
Right.
Yep. I agree completely with you. And it's just, I don't know. There's a sense of, you want validation from your peers and people you look up to, and that's what they're looking for a lot of times. You can't blame them, and we've all been there in anything we've ever done. But, you know, there is come a time where you have to say, okay, if the validation or recognition I'm getting from my peers and my mentors or whatever doesn't align with my happiness, then okay, we're on the wrong side of this line here.
I mean, I've got a dog, my oldest hound. She's actually tattooed on my arm. She was my first hound. You know, I screwed up with her big time. You know, a lot of people, she'd be gone by now. You know, started out hunting her on properties that were too small. So she'd be running a track, opening a track. I'd have to call her off because she'd hit a fence. You know, now she won't run a track. But you know what? If I still take her out with us, and, you know, she's seen too many raccoons in a cage, which, you know, I didn't think that was the thing. People told me, oh yeah, don't do that. Well, it is a thing. But I still take her out with me, and, you know, she hears the other dogs treeing, she'll go in there. And I've found out over the last probably year, maybe year and a half, that if she's not treeing, it's not in the tree.
Yeah.
And we've looked, and we have confirmed it
right
100% of the time now. If she's treeing, it's in there. She's either looking at it or she watched it go up the tree or whatever, but it's there.
Right.
Yeah.
Like I kind of call her my check dog, like, especially for the young dogs. Like, I know it's there, and she's never, you know, she won't run a track. She won't open on a track. She won't, none of that. But man, if she's treeing, I know it's there.
Yeah. Now, when you say she won't run a track, is she just not opening, or she literally just has to come across a tree?
Yeah. She just got to come across the tree. I mean, she'll find layups.
Yeah.
Like she'll find layup coons. But I think it was just that, because the property I started hunting her on, it was only like 15 acres, and all the people around it were very anti-hunting, very, you know, kind of like, I was worried for her. So she'd be, you know, at 6 months old, she's running a track, opening it up, but she'd hit that fence. So I'd have to call her off.
Yeah.
You know, and you do that enough times, I mean, they're like, well, I'm not supposed to do this now.
Right.
Yeah.
You know,
right.
You know, I think she cold trails sometimes, you know, because the nose is going, and I can watch her working, you know, working it out. But yeah, she doesn't get very far away from me. anymore.
Yeah. It's crazy the tiny little things that we can do sometimes, not even quite understand we're doing them. They can totally alter a dog. Like when I moved back here beside my parents, there's a subdivision. When I was growing up, wasn't out there, and I backed right up to it. And my dog, my hound was barking every time I pulled in the driveway, or coming in at 1 o'clock in the morning, coon hunting. He'd bark a minute or two till I went in the house. I got tons of complaints. Law called on me. Had put no that about 4 or 5 months of him having to wear one day on, one day off, so on and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
It got to where now he's almost silent on track. He does track, he does trail, but my whole hearing the hound race out of him is almost non-existent unless it's super hot. I feel like he's looking at the coon, and it just sucks. You just never really know. Like you talk about that cage thing, it's a real deal. But I know dudes have shown dogs 100 cages and it never affects them. So there's a probability in all this stuff, but none of it is a sure science. I
mean, in a way, it kind of worked out because now I know. I mean, a lot of guys say, "Oh, my dogs aren't slick tree," and like, she's kind of worthless for everything else, but laying on the couch and, let me know there's actually something there. So,
right.
Yeah. Well, the accuracy of the dog is, to me, one of the most important things. I'm too fat and these hills are too steep to walk to a slick tree, so I get that.
Yeah, I do too. And, it's, but it kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier. One man's trash is another man's treasure. I've had, I ran sled dogs for a bunch of years. I know you did when you were a youngster, Charlie.
Yeah.
In my time. Go ahead.
I said my family ran. I mean, I was probably 10 when they got out of it, but heck, I can still remember, we had 14, 15 dogs at a time.
Yeah.
I lived in Northern California at that time. So we had a wheeled sled that we'd train them in during the off season, through the orchards and everything. And
cool.
That was great. Had my one dog that I raced when I was, 7 or 8.
That's
like
awesome.
I sent you that picture of that one.
Yeah, you did. That's awesome.
The one dog, like quarter-mile race, those are always fun.
I love those. The kids races are always a blast. Half the time the dogs finish without the kid, and it's the best.
Yeah, that happens.
I love it. It's the best. But like in my career, I had 3 leaders that were really, truly exceptional dogs. And 2 of those were somebody else's rejects.
Yeah.
Somebody else's trash. One, I had she wasn't one of the best I've ever had, but I had a dog that I got for free, was given to me as a condition of borrowing 2 other ones. I could borrow these 2 other ones if I took her and never ever came back with her.
Right.
And, their reasoning, they had a reason for it, and their reasoning was okay. It was sound. That dog had a quality that they found to be a deal breaker. But it was a quality that I was confident that I could work with.
Right.
So I said, all right, that's fine. And the quality was that she would go, if you put her in lead when you left the yard, she would run about 10 miles and then she would lay down. Totally quit. You'd need to put her in the bag. For most people, that is an absolute deal breaker. You don't want to have a dog that quits on you. That's an unforgivable sin.
Mm-hmm.
And I agree with that. But I had a sneaking suspicion that she did not like the speed in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
And that she was throwing a tantrum. It wasn't that she didn't have the confidence, because there was something about the way she looked at me when she did it that told me that this was not a lack of confidence or I don't want to do this, or I'm scared or anything like that. But that was a sit down and, you know what? Screw you.
Yeah, I'm not going to.
Right. I'm not going to, because screw you. That's why. Mm-hmm. And so it wasn't even that complicated. Like, all I did is I put her in the back of the team until we'd gotten past that 10-mile point, and then I could put her up there. That dog would go for 10, 11 hours after that. No problem.
Mm.
But the initial startup, the chaos around the startup, she did not like and did not want to have to deal with it. And that was her way of, which is, realistically a sled dog's only way of putting their foot down is to stop pulling.
Yeah.
And that was her solution, was to just, I do not like this, and I don't know what else I can do to make you understand it.
It's funny you say that, because I can remember when we were doing it as a kid, we had a Siberian Husky that would do that same thing. This one was pure white, which was pretty rare, with the blue eyes.
Cool.
And my dad ended up getting rid of it because it would do the same thing. I mean, it'd only run a mile or two, and it's just like, no, I'm done. I don't want to do it.
Right.
And there's nothing you can do to make that dog run.
Right.
But yeah, he ended up going to find another home. I remember that now.
Yeah, I mean, it's sometimes dogs are they're going to try to get through to you one way or the other.
Yep.
And a lot of times nobody's going to like, nobody's going to like having a dog refuse to do something for them.
Yeah.
But, I want to know why they don't want to do something. And it was part of what interested me with Virpi as well, is I knew the guy that I got her from was a good houndsman.
Mm-hmm.
I had seen him run, I'd seen his other dogs. I'd seen her kids, Virpi's kids, and they were solid, and he was solid, and the stuff that he said was solid. So I didn't understand it, but I wanted to know who he got her. I sort of tracked her owners back to the very first one.
Mm-hmm.
So not her breeder, but the one who the breeder had sold her to as a pup. And I got into contact with him, and suddenly this dog made a whole bunch of sense. Because I had a dog that if I put her on a fox track, would turn around and walk behind me. I had a dog that wouldn't leave my side. And I had a dog that that refused to open, even if she was in sight of what she was chasing. She would not make a sound. And I didn't have another hound at that point. So I was curious as to why. And I also wanted to see, just as a challenge, being new to the hound sport at that point, I'm still new, but I was like super new, like brand new. I wanted to see if I could actually get through some of this stuff. So I tracked this guy down and I talked to him. I just said, hey, I've got this dog and just wanted to know what your thoughts were about her. And he said, oh, that dog's crap. And I said, oh, well, okay. Why do you say that? He said, no, she's too soft. And I said, okay, well, what was she doing that said that to you? He said, well, I'd put her on a fox track, and then she'd go off and chase something else. She'd chase rabbit or something. So, I just got tired of waiting for her, so I went off and did my own thing. So he'd drop the dog, and then he'd leave. So she learned that when she was all done, that he wasn't going to back her up regardless. And when she was all done, she could go back to where she'd last seen him, and he wasn't going to be there. So she learned that she needed to keep track of where he was. Additionally, He hated her so much that he started letting her just tear her around, and then he would go and hunt another dog. But that other dog was this big old male plot. And every time she opened up on a track, that dog would go tearing off through the woods, catch her, beat the crap out of her, and then take over that track. So she learned that every time she opened up, this monster came out of the woods, kicked her butt.
That's terrible.
Yeah. So she learned that if she left that guy's side, he was never going to be there when she came back. She also learned that every time she opened up, she was going to get her butt kicked. Even if it wasn't him doing it, she learned the lesson. So it gave me perspective as to why she was doing these things, and gave me a place to start breaking her off of it.
Yeah.
And, those are two problems that she doesn't have anymore. She's got a whole bushel of other problems that I don't think she'll live long enough for me to figure them all out. But, it's one of those things that,
you learned that she wasn't a junk hound. She was a product of her circumstances when she was raised.
Exactly.
And that a lot of times can be played with and improved. And you did that.
Exactly. Yeah. She's got the ability. She's got a great nose. She's got a lot of drive, but she has these skeletons in her closet that just these demons, these ghosts that pop up and sort of derail whatever cool thing she's doing, still a lot of the time. But it's one of those things where I do so much wrong. And that's the other thing is like, you could take a dog like Buzz, or you could take Vippy, or you could take Dan, the plot, or give me a year with Mike and then take him off my hands. You're going to find that dog has some habit. Those dogs all have habits that are going to drive you insane. Mm-hmm. That I have managed to teach them obliviously, not realizing that some weird thing that I was doing was actually teaching them something that I did not intend to teach them. Mm-hmm. But I feel like that's one of the things that I wish all these young guys understood, and I wish these old guys and these know-it-alls on social media would remember that these young guys are going to be making all of the mistakes that they made when they got into it.
Yep.
And to criticize a beginner for being a beginner is asinine.
Oh, yeah.
So, I wish that people would remember that when they're online, when they're commenting on people, the posts of these younger guys, or even, really anybody. It doesn't matter who they are, whether they're young or old or whatever. When you're commenting, just for God's sakes, try and be nice.
Yeah. If you listen to any other podcast that's got the 80-year-old houndsman on there talking, or if you see any videos with them, or any and you speak to them, one of the common threads, it seems like every one of them, when they talk about their great hounds of the past, that old Bobo dog of 86 or whatever it was, right. Boy, he had this, we had to work so hard to get him through this, or, he had this problem, or he almost got crippled up, and we spent 2 years getting him back, and then he was hammered down. And There's always these things. You never hear of the great dogs they had was, well, I turned him loose and he was 4 months old and he struck a bear or whatever, and I never had to work him a day after that. That dog, whether he exists or not, I don't know, but that one never gets to the greatest of all time hit list when it comes to talking, That's and like you're talking about your dog there, you may have others that hunt better, but that one is such a high up on your standard because the things that y'all went through and worked her together, you and her made a bond that a lot of hounds you may not make with because you had to put so much time into her. And the younger people, or the novice or whatever, need to understand that it's those hounds. When you look back, those hounds are going to be like, man, I'm so glad that was pain in the butt when I was going through it. I was aggravated or whatever. Yep. But man, those were the good old days. That was a good time. I'm so glad that happened. Or had to go through it.
Absolutely. I totally agree with that. And, the thing is like Vippy is almost, apart from Buzz, who won't hunt at all, Vippy is always probably going to be the worst performing hound I've ever had. Mm-hmm. But I have learned so much more from Vippy and her not doing the things that I want her to do than I ever learned from, Dan is one of my favorite hounds of all time. Dan did everything right from the moment he hit the ground. He chased moose, and which drove me crazy, but that dog is a hunting machine. He was outperforming both of my other hounds before he was even close to a year old. But I didn't earn any of that.
Yeah.
That was dumb luck.
Yeah.
Emphasis on dumb. Like that was dumb luck.
Yeah. And it's fun to hunt a dog like that. I'm not saying it's not for people listening or whatever, but looking back, it's the appreciation, not the product, that really kind of, for me, defines what being a houndsman or hunting with hounds is about.
Absolutely. And I think it applies to all dogs. And it's funny that you mentioned that, because Charlie, you'll appreciate this. Yesterday, a friend of mine died of cancer after fighting it for about 21 years. He got diagnosed in 2001. And he got worked his way through it, but what got him back onto his feet he was a dog musher, was the dream of getting back on the runners. Mm-hmm. And he worked through it. He lost his saliva glands. He lost a bunch of his teeth. They radiated his jaw. And he got back on the runners because that's what he wanted to do. And that first solid team that he put together after he had gotten back from the cancer, he felt legitimately that those dogs saved his life. Yep. That they gave him a reason to get up in the morning and get back out, and a reason to live when otherwise his life kind of sucked at that point.
Yeah.
And that guy ended up with those same dogs, ended up going and winning more 1,000-mile dog sled races than any other person in the history of dog mushing.
Yeah.
And that was Lance Mackey. Mm-hmm. And not only did he do that, but he did something that had been long considered to be impossible. He won the 2,000-mile races that go the same year. He won those back to back the same year. Mm. That had never been done before. It's not been done since. Mm. And that guy won 8 1,000-mile races with those dogs. And you could look at those dogs. They were not anything special to anybody else. You didn't look at those dogs and think, these dogs, boy, these guys are going to kill it. They were in sewed up harnesses, dirty harnesses. They were big and tall. They were short and stubby. They were fluffy. They were thin coated. It was a mismatched group of misfits led by a misfit.
Yeah.
And the guy loved those dogs so much, and those dogs loved that guy so much, that they were able to do incredible things together. Things that I'm not sure will ever be repeated.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it came down to the connection to the dogs, and it wasn't just that he's able to read dogs and he's got a way with dogs. That's part of it. But it was his dedication to those dogs.
Yeah.
He felt like he was able to see their weaknesses and be like, hey man, you saved my life, so it's okay that your code is crap. Mm-hmm. It's okay that your top speed is 12 miles an hour. You were there when I could barely stand. Come on, pal. I got you. You're with me. We're in this together. And it's an attitude that I think that a lot of dog mushers today don't have. And it's certainly an attitude that a lot of dog people in general, houndsmen, dog mushers, whatever, don't have.
Yeah.
It's this, well, what have you done for me lately, man?
Mm-hmm.
I think I could get a better dog if I went and talked to this person, instead of putting that time into that dog that, may not ever be the natural talent that the Joneses have next door.
Mhm.
But that connection,
Yeah.
I have found that nothing has given me more satisfaction in my life in dogs, which is starting to be a while. I'm new to the hounds, but I've been in dogs for a long time.
Yeah.
Nothing gives me more satisfaction than connecting that way with a dog.
Yeah.
And I wish that more people understood that and valued that, because, you know, and it's why you get these kids that come out of nowhere with some no-name dog with no-name breeding and absolutely just destroy
Mm-hmm.
these $15,000 dogs.
Yeah.
Because they don't, in their eyes, that dog means the world to them.
Yeah.
You know, that's a $50 dog that they would not sell even before they win. They would not sell for $50,000.
Yeah.
Yep.
And
That's how
you
my
say, go ahead, Charlie.
and that's how my oldest hound is. I mean, she's, you know, like I said, she's that $50 dog. You offer me $1 million for her, she's not leaving my house.
Yep.
She'll die sitting here sleeping on my bed where she's at right now.
Yep.
You know, I mean, she's
Yeah.
she's the one that got me into it. She's the one that kind of started the obsession, I guess you could say. And, you know, and yeah, she's, no, there's just something special about that one.
Yeah.
In this day and age of houndsmen, I guess, asking their hound, what have you done for me lately? When's the last time you heard a hound even imply that on who owned it or who was hunting it?
Right.
Dogs don't do that. You know, it's been said that they're in our lives for part of our life, but we're in their lives for all of theirs, you know, because we outlive dogs mostly.
Yep.
And when you look at the loyalty, shared loyalty between you and your hound, you know, it needs to be shared. It needs to be equal. And like you were talking about your friend with those dogs, they were there through him through the hard times, and he was there no matter what little quirk they had. And, you know, I don't know, through social media and stuff, you lost, but hopefully it's not, you know, with houndsmen in general. They're still out there. They're just not posted. But yeah, that's what you were talking about is really what it's all about.
I think so. You know, I think so. You know, I think that it's those, you know, you've got your hide dog there. You know, Charlie, you've got your bed sleeping blue tick. Was it a blue tick?
Mm-hmm. She's the blue tick walker.
Yeah. Okay. You know, and I've got Vitpi, the trash running, you know, Barbie flake. And, you know, is she perfect? No. I'm not going to try and convince anybody that she's more than she is. But I value what she is.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't care if anybody else, I don't care what other people think about that. And I think that's something that probably comes with age. You know, you want validation from your peers, certainly. But ultimately, and, you know, I'll say this to you guys, I'll say it to anybody who's in this sport, been in this sport for a while, or is new in the sport. You gotta focus on what makes you happy. Life is too short to be running dogs you don't like.
Yep.
Yeah.
And if you run 50 dogs, if you burn through 50 dogs to find that one dog that you like, maybe it's worth it. Or maybe you need to reevaluate how you're going about this.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm betting that there are a couple in those 50 dogs that probably could have done well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think a lot of guys' problems is they, you know, they'll get a dog and it's not perfect right out the gate. And they're like, oh, got to get rid of it, send it off to somebody else. And that's why they go through those 50 dogs. I mean, I had one of my best dogs I had, I got it from a friend of mine. She was like 7 years old. We had to put her down a couple of years ago. They just didn't hunt her much because they tried to hunt her on like 5 or 6 different types of game and just never really, she had like 3 litters of puppies, and it was like, well, you can have her if you want.
Right.
She ended up being one of probably the best dog I had.
Yeah.
She just needed somebody to give her a chance. That's all it was.
Right.
I think too, along with that, is if you're getting into the sport, you need to manage your expectations with your experience. If you're, I say this to, I literally get 4 or 5 of these a day. People starting into the sport, and a lot of times I say they're kids. I assume they're kids. What dog should I get? And I always recommend them to go find that 8-year-old that someone maybe is tired of and they're wanting to train, and start that route, because your experience level and your patience. I know this was my biggest issue, my patience. When training a pup, I done more damage than I did good because my patience wasn't there to be in for the long haul, and I had to learn that process. And it's that way for a lot of people. So if you're looking to get into it, you kind of have to weigh that out too, because a lot of them guys that you say are going through 50 dogs or whatever, it could, a lot of times it's their fault because they didn't have the patience to sit down and work through those problems. Like you say, there could have been several in there that, if under the right circumstances, with someone who, wrong if you don't have it, but could have made that dog into what you really wanted it to be. So maybe it's better to start out with something that you don't have to put much work into, and you can just go ahead and get into the sport and enjoy it. Then later, as you have some experience and, kind of pick up into training something or whatever, that's something I've always leaned towards.
Yeah, I agree with you there. You've got to have realistic expectations about what you can realistically accomplish as a youngster, or I say youngster, but sort of with the understanding that when I say youngster, I mean in the sport. You can be 60-year-old youngster in the sport, I suppose, but but also I think that there's. I talked to a well-known dog musher once, where his solution, every time somebody came to him with a problem, his solution, and it became his catchphrase that he wrote a book and it was all over his book too, was get another dog. And, his attitude was life is too short to run dogs that you don't like. Which, I mean, is true. Life is too short to hang with people you don't like. Life is too short to run dogs you don't like. But, I don't think that he totally knew the damage he was doing by telling people that, because, what it meant is that he had a bunch of groupies that they never gave a dog a chance.
Yeah.
And some dogs take longer than others.
Some do.
That's something I've learned too. My one of my blue ticks, pups, she was 6 months old, I think. She found her first layup coon by herself. I was like, sweet, this dog's going to be great. And then it was like 4 or 5 months before she really even started. I was getting frustrated. And I'd tell myself, she's only a year old. She's only 10 months old.
Yeah.
Relax. Like she's, just this year they've started really, running the track and opening on track. And they were treeing coons, but they were, being silent. They were, so just some of them take more time than others. Yeah. And it's how much time you have to put into them.
Yep.
You can only hunt once or twice a week. I have a buddy that says, you're not going to make a 5-night-a-week dog hunting once a week.
Yep.
You're not going to make that, it takes time.
It takes time and it takes dedication. And I think that's what I miss a little bit sometimes, is there's dedication to the sport. I see a ton of people with a bunch of dedication to the sport and the lifestyle. And I love that. I do. I really do love that. But I think that we've gotten to the point where we're so focused on results that we've started to lose the dedication to the individual dogs. Mm-hmm. And it's like you pointed out, earlier, Nick, that those super dogs, those legendary dogs that people talk about, most of those dogs had some crazy thing happen where in their life where the houndsman needed to make a leap of faith that this dog is worth my time.
Yeah, exactly.
And it paid off. And I wonder whether we are losing that a little bit as a lifestyle, as a part of the lifestyle, where a little bit less dedication to the dogs themselves.
Yeah, I think social media is where a lot of that is stemming from. There's more of a push for the lifestyle than the craft. You don't see many videos, or are you starting to see more podcasts coming around and talking more about the craft of raising, training, developing in a hound.
Yep.
So, I mean, I guess it is coming around some, so I have to eat my words on it a little bit. But you still, if you're someone who's new to the sport and you're needing that information, that is very hard information to come by. Now, if you need to find where to get a decal for your truck or a T-shirt or whatever,
right?
The lifestyle,
right?
But when it comes to the craft of it, that is hard information, especially if you don't have a mentor to take you out hunting, or a grandpa or someone like that to really, apprentice you into things.
Yeah.
So that's my opinion.
I agree with that. And I think it's why I place, things like Bear Hunting Magazine or Full Cry, or the American Beagle or whatever. I think that's why some of these print publications and also a lot of these podcasts, not mine. Mine is more of the come along while I bumble through this stuff. But there are some great podcasts out there, where you can get a lot of good information about how to start a dog.
Yeah.
There's a lot of good information out there if you know where to look, and social media is not necessarily that place.
Yeah.
I would recommend that people try and get back issues of Full Cry and Bear Hunting Magazine, where you can get the opinions of somebody whose opinions actually matter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like you say, like back in the 70s and 80s, if you bumped into someone, they say, "Oh, what do you do?" "Oh, I'm a houndsman." "Well, how did you learn that?" "Well, since I was a kid, I've been walking behind Grandpa in the woods, leading dogs. That's where I got my knowledge. That's my resume." And now it's so much easier to plug into the lifestyle, which is good because it brings people into it.
Sure.
But, they got to be able to find that information, the correct information. And the places like you're talking about, that's where people got to be looking towards.
Right.
Because they may not have grandpa anymore, or dad may not be a houndsman, whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's used to be how we used to get it. It was a hands-on apprenticeship. And now it's good luck finding the information, do the best you can.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. When did you, let's get back to you a little bit here, Charlie. When your family got out of the sled dogs, did they go right into the hounds, or is that something you found a little bit later on? I guess you said you got out when you're 10 and now you've been in this hound thing for about 6 months. So I guess that's probably not the case, but tell me a little bit about how you got into what brought you to the hounds.
So none of my family hunts really at all. Maybe one or two bird hunters. Actually a lot of my family, unfortunately, is kind of you call them the yuppie city people, anti everything kind of thing. Always had dogs though. I mean, of just about every shape and size and kind. And
okay,
when I was about 16, I got a black lab that I was going to train to be a waterfowl dog.
Yep.
And being a 16-year-old, I was like, this is way too much work. So I sat in the kennel and I never did anything with it.
Okay.
And ended up getting rid of that one. And then it was about six, always, like I said, always had different dogs, from pit bull to, we had a Rottweiler for a while, and we had just about every kind of dog you could ever imagine.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was, right? It was 6 years ago. I was like, I really want to get a hunting dog. And I was looking at bird dogs again. I was like, man, these are all so expensive. These are ridiculously priced. Like, I'm not spending $2,500 on a puppy. This is dumb. And then I found this ad on Facebook for these blue tick walker puppies. And I was like, well, I don't really want to, and everything I was reading was like, oh, coon dogs. I was like, I don't really want to coon hunt with them, but maybe I can get her, and have her like rabbit hunt, do like shed hunt and stuff like that. So we went and picked her up and went to a local beagle club. It was actually kind of where I met one of my mentors. And he's like, she's going to be way too big to be able to hunt rabbits around here because they got to be able to get through the blackberries and they're really tight. It's like, she's just going to be too big to do it. And that was a little discouraging at first, but I mean, he was right. I mean, she's only about 40 pounds, but she's way too big to do that. And then so I started going out and coon hunting with them, and then really just kind of got hooked on it.
Sure. Cool.
Here we are now. I got 4 hounds and a beagle, and yeah.
That's awesome. What made you get a beagle?
Well, I had somebody up from one of the other Hound podcasts, and he spent a week here hunting with me, and he wanted to go beagle hunting. So I knew a guy that had some really good beagles, and so we went out with him, and then that kind of hooked me on the beagles. So my youngest daughter fell in love with one of them, and she just bugged us and bugged us and bugged us and bugged us. And I was like, all right, fine, we'll go ahead and get it. Well, now there's that too. Now I'd have a whole bunch of them too if I had the space and the money for them.
Yeah, right. It's some of the best things in my life started with one of my kids harassing me about something.
Yeah, just kind of stumbled into it. Now, here we are.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah. So
a lot like you said, with having a mentor or something. It's like I started this with nothing, just Facebook and the internet's what I,
right.
Yeah.
was basing my training and everything off of. And, now, heck, my training with these 2 littermate blue ticks was, I never showed them one in a cage, never did any scent drags. I just took them out and hunted them. I just put them out chasing game, and they're doing great. So
that's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, it's one of the greatest pleasures I get from learning this whole hound thing is trying to do a little bit better every time.
Yeah.
And wanting to do better with Mike than I did with Dan, do better with Dan than I did with Buzz, do better with Buzz than I did with Vippy. And it's one of those deals where I've had nobody that I've been able to go and hunt with in terms of a mentor. But this is one of the positives about social media. Now I'm going to be positive about social media. One of the positives is that you can go through these sites and, read comments and things like that. And you can get a pretty good idea of who actually knows what they're talking about. And then you can contact them directly. And that's what got me, I made leaps and bounds that way, because I got into it before a lot of these podcasts were even started, which is not that long ago. I mean, kind of keep in mind, it really is not that long ago.
Yeah.
That these Hound podcasts have been around. And, but some of these Facebook pages have been around for a while, and I was able to go in there and, find guys like Jared Moss, Ross Elwinger, and, found your YouTube channel, Nick, and, just you start to find people who don't pretend that they know everything, but put out information and put it out in a way that's not, this is how you do it, but hey, this is what happened, this is how I responded, and this is how the dog then responded, which is such, it's such a valuable thing. I think, anybody that has the ability to think for themselves and think critically can go into some of these Facebook pages and you can find the people that know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
And, so that's the great thing about social media is that if you're a little bit critical when you're reading, going through some of this stuff, you can find people that are enormously generous with their time, their advice. I don't know how many times I've sent poor Mark Dufresne messages asking him questions. Same with Eric Partolo, the guy, a buddy of mine now over in Sweden. We connected on social media, and that guy is a wealth of good anecdotes and stories and information. But for me, I don't absorb information from know-it-alls. Like I just can't. I've got a mental block. I just can't do it.
Yeah.
So for me, a prerequisite for all of this is that the person needs to be humble, realistic about their dogs, realistic about themselves. And there's got to be a level of curiosity there, right? Where, I can, one of my pals over here, excellent houndsman, just in his ability to read dogs and his curiosity is John Steiner Vangen. And that's one of my favorite things is talking to him about issues that I'm having or challenges that I'm having or whatever, because he gets so excited about them. It's so rare that I can send him a problem and, I'll share the problem with some people and they'll be like, oh man, that sucks. And his reaction is going to be, oh man, that's super interesting. He gets jazzed up about it, which I love that attitude. I love that. This has not happened to me before. This is cool.
Yeah.
And so in that way, I think social media is just awesome because you can filter through a lot of the crap and find some just awesome people who are going to be all about helping you out.
If you find someone out there who's basically posting the highlight reel, if they're just kind of throwing their documentation of, like you said, this happened, this is what I did, this is the result, worked for me. If you got this situation, you want to try it, here you go. Here's some info. Those are the people you got to connect with.
Right.
Yeah, not necessarily the ones that are, this is the only way. You do it this way. My way is the best way. Well, it's not always the case. It doesn't work for everybody.
I find that anybody that says my way is the best way is almost always wrong.
Yeah.
But, well, guys, we've been doing this for about an hour and a half already, which just blows me away how fast these things go. Got a couple of dog guys sitting around talking, and it just goes so fast. It's unbelievable. But do you have anything else you want to hit on, Charlie, before we call it a morning for you, an evening for me, an afternoon for Nick?
Yeah, we're kind of all over the place.
We're all over the place here.
No, I think we covered a lot. It was good talking to you guys.
Yeah, likewise, my friend. It was nice to meet you, and I appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, appreciate you letting me come on.
Oh, absolutely. Nick, anything you want to touch on before we call it a day?
I think we covered this one pretty good. But Charlie, it was good seeing you. Bear, man, I appreciate you always having me on here. It's an honor.
Absolutely. It's always it's always a good time to sit down and talk to you. I appreciate you putting up with me for a few hours every few weeks here. All right, guys.
All right, take care.
See ya.
See ya.
Man, I love that sound.